With Knock Knock, we're really our own client, and at first it was very helpful in establishing our brand identity. And when I say we and our, that isn't entirely accurate at first, because I was very much the voice, both visually and verbally, of Knock Knock, and I established it, and I was doing all of the writing and editing myself until about 4 years ago, and that was part of the 90-hour weeks. Didn't start building an editorial staff at all until 4 years ago, and now we have an in-house staff of 3.5, really, and transmitting to them the voice and having them develop and evolve it has been a really key part of growing Knock Knock, and also freeing me up to some extent. But it got to a point where we really needed to evolve and expand Knock Knock. And so in terms of being our own clients, what we needed to do was bring in outside talent, and we'll hire more talent and start expanding the voice, evolving the voice. But all of our products have to have a balance of surprise and familiarity. If they're too surprising, people won't get them, and if they're too familiar, they're boring. I think overall that's the case with just about anything creative. Sometimes the danger in being our own clients is that is really more that we don't do enough. I'm going to call it focus grouping, but we never do focus grouping. Our development cycles are too short, and we can't afford it. But I mean, just having somebody uninitiated. It can even be somebody from accounting, or somebody in the creative group who isn't working on the project, look at it and just say, "Do you get it?" Because we're so close to it, we've seen so many iterations of it, that we don't know if there's going to be a get in that first 3 seconds that you need a customer who's walking by, the 3-second rule. That a customer needs to really kind of have a gotcha moment about the product. We lose track of that. You really don't have fresh eyes. So I think that's the hardest thing sometimes about being your own client. About 1.5 years ago, we hired a creative director, the first one other than me. And so in some ways now I'm like an outside client, because I'm a little bit less involved in the day-to-day development, and I can provide an outside fresh eye. And so as we grow, it's like we have more people who are maybe, we have just a few people who are involved on each project, and the others can be a fresh eye. And the brand is evolving and growing, and that's really exciting. Okay, manufacturing in China is certainly an adventure unto itself, and a huge learning curve. Knock Knock itself is seeing improvements in its pricing overall, because we started off with such high prices, in part due to the fact that, as I mentioned, our manufacturer broker had been stealing from us for so many years by marking up his costs or his pricing far more than what he was telling us. So as we started to source directly and started to do competitive bidding, our prices were going down and down. And also as our quantities have gone up, our pricing has gone down and down. So for our own individual reasons and our growth, we've seen our pricing go down. But right now with China, the plentiful and somewhat inexpensive labor force is currently changing, and there are many more opportunities for the Chinese labor force, and the factories are having a much harder time filling the jobs that once were very easy to fill, and wages are rising, which is a natural cycle. It's a natural global cycle. So just as in the United States, certain states became concentrated for manufacturing, so we're seeing that globally. Certain countries become concentrated for manufacturing, and then as the wealth rises in that country, the manufacturing moves. It's just a fact of economic cycles.
And how have you adjusted to that?
We haven't felt it yet. We're just kind of anticipating it. And so we're starting to explore sourcing in other countries, we're keeping in close contact with our manufacturers. We view our manufacturers as partners, and we want them to view us as their partners. And so one of the ways that we're actually contending with this is by traveling more frequently to China and meeting with the manufacturers face to face. We haven't done that in a while. And one of the things in terms of understanding cultural differences is how important it is for the Chinese to meet face to face. And it can be so easy to just get caught up in email and phone, but to meet face to face and to understand that we have certain goals as a company and we want to succeed together, and that we care about their success as much as that we care about their own, our own, so we start strategizing about ways to do that. We want to hear about ways that we could manufacture or design our products more efficiently from a manufacturing point of view, or time things from a more efficient point of view. And so we feel that by developing more partnership relationships, they're going to give us a heads up. Our prices are guaranteed for a certain period of time. I mean, that's just standard, that you get a quote and it's good for 30 days, 60 days, 120 days, 180 days, what have you. It's generally 3 months to 6 months. And our manufacturers start to tell us, paper is going to be going up substantially in 6 months, so you might want to consider buying a container load. We'll store it for you for free. So it's having those kinds of open communication channels and viewing our manufacturers as partners. That makes the difference, and we try and stay up on the news. But our view overall is that if it's a challenge that's affecting all businesses, prices are just going to go up overall. What can we do?
It's called inflation, basically.
Exactly. And so, we don't want to, but we also at the same time want to start looking at sourcing elsewhere. We want to start. We also want to be proactive. So,
do you feel competition from China at all?
What do you mean by competition from China?
In the terms of production or some kind of similar business plan that would come to the U.S. or compete in the Chinese market if you're there at all?
I'm sorry, do you mean, do we feel competition
from Chinese markets?
You mean for product?
Yeah.
No, not at all. One of the things that we hear again and again, we do a lot of customized product for the big box mass retail chains, and they are increasingly having in-house design to do their own private label product. I guess it's not private label if they're designing it, but one of the and some of our peers are getting knocked off again and again, and we sometimes get knocked off also. But one of the things we hear over and over again is that our content and our language is what keeps us from fully being able to get knocked off. That if it's just design, if it's just decoration, it's far easier to get knocked off.
And that's the benefit of having a personality, actually.
Exactly. That's absolutely the benefit of having, or one of the many benefits of having a personality. Then again, we're not really in the Chinese marketplace looking around to see if we're getting knocked off. I was on another company's website recently, and they had a section that was patents and trademarks, and I thought, that's odd. So I clicked on it because, something's odd, I want to check it out. And it was a history of all of their lawsuits defending, and letters, establishing, defending all of their patents and so forth. Now this company is a much more patent-based, we don't have any patents, we just have trademarks and a lot of, copyrighted material. And patents are an entirely different thing, and they'd had many knockoffs, and it makes a lot more sense for them to be protecting their patentable products. And part of the reason why they have it on the site is to scare people away from knocking them off. but I do think it is a bit of a decision of, how rigorously are you going to go after certain kinds of knockoffs. It's one of the costs of success. We did see some just utter, like literally, this entity took our stuff and just completely like copied it. I mean, like as if they had put it in the color Xerox machine pretty much. And they were selling it through Facebook, and our lawyer wrote a letter to Facebook, and they were taken down or whatever. That was and they were actually in Asia. It was one of the first, but we haven't, there may be, but we have not yet found out about it.